Hello doll family, and welcome back to Super Buddies Forever and our how-to on the dressing room, powder room / bathroom for the Getting Fairest Ever After High dolls. It is a room box, and this is my box. As usual, I use a bigger one for the surprise rooms, you know that. Now here, jumping right in, I didn't show all the process of putting on the floor and ceiling because I've shown that like 4 or 5 times already in the other how-tos. Put a piece of tape to hold it together and make it match, then glue it on, and then of course cut off the excess. Trying to keep all the glue for the most part near the edges for the dimples, but it does settle down, so even when you have to do the middle, still works out okay. Again, this is a repeat. I'm making sure when I put my wallpaper on, I plan ahead and put glue under where the windows and valances will be so that those dimples don't show on the paper once again. This paper I was super excited to find because it actually matched up on its own perfectly. I didn't have to do any repeat or overlap to lose any of it, so this was a fabulous find for the paper. And this stripe stuff, well, of course, that matches up pretty perfectly too. I really wanted to feel like a powder room and dainty and intimate or something like that. And the furniture I had to work with as well kind of dictated which way I went with it. I did want to have the Raven vanity, but it wasn't going to happen. That would have made it far more complicated in terms of bringing all the colors together, and it's still working for all the dolls as well. This was the place that I had to work with, and I really didn't want to repaint the whole thing. I put it in the box like that so I can have ideas and try to get a handle on where I'm gonna put stuff, and this one was so tough, as strange as it sounds. Okay, here I'm putting on the wallpaper. I've already put the wallpaper on the top portion, and I'm showing it on the bottom just to get an idea. So I've taped all those pieces together after I cut them, and I put the glue on like that, and I just slowly press it on, and I make sure I put a little extra glue where they join, of course, so that both pieces of paper are actually getting stuck to the wall. I added my gold duct tape around as an edging for the box, and then of course I put Mod Podge on top of the floor and the ceiling. Here is what I'm using as my little lights for the dressing room. We need lots of lights, so I did 3. Later I will put some puffy paint on there. Here's my little mirror idea. I found this piece of scrapbook paper, which was a gem to find. I've used most of it on Mira's dorm room for her mirrors, and I had some left over, and I looked at it and kind of thought, hey, this looks like a full-length mirror. It was not in my plans in the beginning at all, but this just kind of was one of those things that grew into fit on the side walls. So I have my trim here, and I've put that on slowly with hot glue on the top and on the top of the wainscoting type area. Here's just a little overview of how that's all looking together. That gold is very pretty. It's very textured, and it really added some dimension to the room, which I love. It was easy to work with too. There's my puffy paint going around the lights, and now I'm going to work on this mirror. I had some of the ceiling trim left over, and I had some small size like this left over from one of the other dorm rooms. What I'm trying to show here is when I cut trim, before I cut it, this is very important, I put some hot glue on the edge where I'm going to cut it, let it dry, and then I cut it. That stops it from fraying. It really helps just to not be a nuisance, and in this case helps the edges look really nice and clean. That is a super helpful tip, and I do that all the time with ribbon to gain not having that fraying look. Here's my baseboard trim, which is very thin, but it worked out really well. I do end up putting, as I do with all the rooms, a coat of puffy paint between the baseboard trim and the floor. Here you have a good view of it coming together with the little bit larger than the other trim, and it looks good on its own. But I have these bows around, and well, I just wanted to use them, and they looked so pretty. They wouldn't be necessary, but I liked them. Just do that with hot glue. If you'll notice there, we just passed that I made sure I did my wainscoting trim first and then put the mirror over on top, and so it also helped to cover that area too and make that look nice and clean. I've added some more little lights to where the vanity is going to be. I knew I wanted that in the middle, but the rest, it was just giving me problems. It seemed like it would be so simple, but to make the dolls match, not let the person in the doll in the background lose and be covered, it drove me nuts. This chair was also, just was not liking it. It was too tall, so I decided to take the middle piece out and just hot glue that into place. It might come apart later, but that's an easy fix. Then I have the vanity. I was kind of wanting that look when there's a cupboard underneath and you put the fabric as a drape, but I didn't end up liking it, so I switched to what ends up happening. Here is an old divider I had for one of my pieces I bought when I was a teenager, and I had never used it in any of the Monster High doll room or anything, so I had it around, and I finally decided to use it with these papers. Now you can easily just cut that shape out, make it accordion for with a thin piece of cardboard or a thicker, but just put some scores in it. Easily, I just took the shade, laid it down on the paper, traced it, and cut it out for both papers so I can have it two-sided. This was a lot easier than I expected, actually. Now the vanity, I didn't end up going with the full-on dressing draping on the front because the pedestal just looked better. The pedestal look, when I covered it, it looked too heavy. So I just decided to use this trim that I had that was going to be on a seat, and then I changed my mind. But because it's plastic with hot glue, it'll tend to give away. So what I did was I hot glued it on, and then I took my clear caulk and ran a bead around it to hold it in, because this one I really didn't want coming loose and me having to fix it later. As well, just to add a little detail, I used some gold Sharpie just to enhance these lines here. Again, I didn't want to repaint this whole thing because these rooms are supposed to be somewhat simpler than the Monster High ones were, so I stuck with what I had for the most part. And it ended up working, actually. Now, this divider I only had to prime because it had a glossy surface, and that as well wouldn't have glued well and could have came loose, so I did that. So now it's just a matter of using the sticky glue to glue that all on, which was just the same as the walls. I have some beautiful fabric here. It is just, I just liked it, had to have it, and it kind of clashed, but at the same sense, anyway, I got to make some curtains out of that. Here is how this looks with both sides done. Really quite simple. Then thinking ahead, I know I'm going to trim it out, so the glue wasn't so important where it went, and these papers worked really fine. I showed you an old towel I had there from the dollar store that I would cut out some towels just for an added thing. And now if you make a shade like this, you just decorate it as you please. I kind of wanted it a little out there and a little, to me, they're usually fancy and intricate, so I added kind of a bit of extra. It actually would look goofy in the scheme of things, but considering Apple has red and pink as well, this actually kind of came together well, and I didn't plan that, it just worked out. But I did go a little gaudy on this on purpose, totally, and kind of laughed when I did it, and got to get rid of some scrap ribbons and stuff I had too. So here's my vanity, and here's my commode, and I've finally come up with a plan where the dolls aren't going to be hidden. And this one was just so challenging. How am I going to put this shade so you can kind of see it and not lose a doll behind it? That was my challenge. So what it ended up being is how it did work out. Here's my little chair that's been hot glued. I like that much better, and Maddie sits on it really good. Here's another little, I had that left over from Apple's room, and like this one, it has the little hook on there for a pretend leave, so that worked out just perfectly for a clothes hanger. If you'll notice that flower, that was from my fascinator, and I didn't end up using that. And now we get on to this curtain. I didn't like my original plan. Oh no, wait, first I'm gonna glue that on. Or I'm deciding where to glue that on. I can't believe how simple this was and gave me issues for placement. Here's my little towels, which are all folded up very lightly with hot glue. Don't press them hard when you're folding them, and they'll have a really natural look. And as I stated in the tour, I put very little on the vanity because you're not really going to see it. So back to that curtain up there, I didn't like the valance on that one and went with something else. I kind of think it's cute because those big bows were from some clips from when Gracie was a baby. So I get that little memory in there for that. It's really kind of nice. So I was saying that I didn't like the valance on this little side window over here, and I went with just some accordion iron down curtain and made it smaller by the window. I like that much better. Put a little detail on there, and as well put that shelf up there. That was a last minute thought, because I had to have some little details up here. So we need some water for Miss Bunny Blanc to be in the bathtub. Thankfully Gracie let me have her, or, well, I bought them off her so we could have the Bathing Beauty bunny in the bathtub. And just use some Easter basket filling for water, as I've done usual, and then just very few details. In the end, I'm glad this worked out because it looks spacious, which is what I want. Hope you've enjoyed this tour. Hope you've seen the full room tour, and as always, thanks for watching. See you next time.